In the walled territories, life was confined, rigid, and meticulously controlled. Helen couldn't even call it life, as it felt more like an existence dictated by forces beyond her control. The people in this land were prisoners of a false narrative, forced into defending a version of history that wasn't their own. They had long forgotten the sacrifices made by those who came before them, including her father, a man who had fought tirelessly to uncover the truth. Helen's father had died in his quest to expose the custodians, a hidden power that silently controlled the land, burying the true history of humankind. This covert group, often referred to as the Watches or the Corrupt Brotherhood, manipulated the people by deepening divides between them, be it through skin color, religious beliefs, or geographical borders. These divisions were the root of endless wars and unquantifiable pain. Helen remembered her father's words clearly: the only true cause is freedom. These words, now a beacon in her heart, guided her through the darkest of times. Despite the land's cruelty and the dangers that lurked at every corner, Helen couldn't bring herself to leave. She understood that her connection to this place, its history and its people, was her responsibility. The custodians, a parasitic force that had existed since the earliest days of humanity, continued to shape this world through manipulation and control. Their power had woven itself into every aspect of life, and Helen knew that if she was to honor her father's legacy, she could never stop fighting for the truth. Helen gained profound insights into the extent of their manipulation through her father's research and the teachings of Shiki, a towering figure who revealed forbidden knowledge about the world. This wisdom spoke of ancient civilizations and the terrifying true history of Phoenita, lands hidden beyond icy walls that separated them from the known world. Helen quickly realized the urgency of her mission. The custodians had long manipulated humanity's vulnerabilities, using division, fear, and subtle control to sustain their dominance. She began to see the normalcy of daily life as a carefully constructed illusion built on falsehoods. She urged the people to challenge everything they had been taught, advocating for a collective spirit of empathy and Helen encouraged them to resist the conditioning that had made them numb to the world's real injustices. As she returned to the lands her father had left behind during wartime, she discovered that nothing had changed. The custodians still held their tight grip, and the people remained trapped in their control. Though wars raged on, they were no longer fought for freedom, but rather to fuel the ongoing division and ensure the custodians' continued power. The cycle of manipulation was endless, and it seemed that no matter how much time passed, the grip of the custodians would not loosen. The task ahead was clear: to awaken the people and ignite a resistance strong enough to challenge the entrenched power. Her father's words lingered in her thoughts. He had always said that true security could never come from governments, leaders, or political parties. The power to break free from those who controlled from the shadows was within their own hand. The Great Dome was a monumental, enigmatic structure that enveloped 17 distinct worlds, referred to as circle environments. Each of these worlds had its own unique climate, civilizations, and, at times, smaller domes within them. This massive dome was believed to mark the edge of the known universe, and for centuries it had been both a source of awe and dread. Few had ever seen the dome up close, and those who tried to cross it had failed. Legends were filled with stories of early explorers who sought to reach the other side, only to encounter an impenetrable barrier. Some believed that the dome could be touched, though no one truly understood its nature. These attempts, along with their subsequent failures, left behind an enduring fear especially among the civilizations that had colonized these worlds. The idea that the Great Dome represented the boundary of all that was known stirred both wonder and unease. Its sheer size and impenetrability made it a constant topic of speculation and mystery. Some viewed it as a symbol of their limitations, while others saw it as an untapped frontier. But regardless of the theories, the dome remained an unyielding force in their world. In the face of this overwhelming mystery, the drive for exploration persisted. Yet the shadow of past failures kept many from daring to challenge the dome's boundary. The question remained, would anyone ever be able to unlock the secrets of the Great Dome, or would it forever remain an unsolvable riddle, a monument to humanity's inability to break free from its constraints? For those in power, the dome represents more than just a boundary. It serves as a protective shield. For their authority, the mere thought of an external force breaking through and disrupting their control is enough to keep them awake at night. Inside the dome, traveling between different worlds poses a significant challenge. Even smaller domes, which exist within the larger environment, are difficult to breach. Over time, advanced technologies were developed to help navigate these barriers. However, traveling by air remains nearly impossible. The most reliable method of movement has always been through water, where natural passages occasionally open, briefly linking the inner and outer worlds like fleeting portals. These portals have allowed for some exploration, but they've also brought chaos. Many of them are unstable, and some travelers have vanished after stepping through them. While some believe these individuals were transported to unknown destinations, others speculate that they were destroyed in the process. Despite these dangers, the effort to create new portals persists, as the possibility of uncovering new worlds remains too enticing to ignore. Independent lands also exist between the different environments of the circle. These neutral territories, once used by early adventurers as places to rest during their arduous travels, are said to act as bridges between worlds, facilitating both exploration and escape. Many hold the belief that the worlds within the Great Dome were designed for study, to spark the pursuit of freedom, and ultimately guide explorers toward the celestial lands, where even deeper mysteries await beyond the dome. The towering dome that encircles these worlds serves as a constant symbol of both their confinement and their untapped potential. It houses countless secrets, obstacles, and possibly a route to freedom, though crossing its boundary comes at a cost few are willing to pay. The custodians, a parasitic race driven by conquest and exploitation, dominate this world. Their technology is focused on both offense and defense, and their insatiable desire to conquer and control other lands and their inhabitants has made them a formidable force within the Great Dome. It is said that the Great Dome holds not only the physical barrier between the known worlds and the unknown, but also a mental one, preventing explorers from fully understanding what lies beyond. The stories of those who have ventured too close to the dome speak of strange forces, overwhelming temptation, and the harsh realities of facing the unknown. Some speculate that the dome itself might be alive, watching over the lands it encloses, protecting its secrets, and ensuring that no one can escape without consequence. While the custodian's presence looms over all, there are whispers of a rebellion brewing within the lands. Some believe that those who dwell in the outermost zones are preparing to challenge the very foundation of the dome, hoping to one day break free from the chains that have held them for so long. These brave few see the dome not as a prison, but as a puzzle, and they will stop at nothing to solve it, no matter the cost. Their origins are shrouded in mystery, but several theories point to the possibility that they resulted from a desperate fusion between their own race and another, possibly one that originated beyond the dome. According to these theories, this fusion gave birth to the powerful beings now known as the custodians. These custodians were among the first to break free from the confines of their world, using advanced technology to extend their influence far beyond their homeland. They began to explore and conquer other realms, moving from one circle environment to the next, often overpowering the young civilizations they came across. The custodians' strength was unmatched, and their presence rapidly spread as they ventured into the farthest reaches of the known worlds. Their power seemed unstoppable, and their ambition was only fueled by the civilizations they encountered. Despite their dominance, the custodians' reign was not without opposition. Throughout recorded history, they have faced defeat twice, each time at the hands of a different race. These rare setbacks, however, have not diminished their desire for power or their thirst for revenge. Though they have yet to retaliate, many believe it is only a matter of time before they strike again. A persistent warning lingers in the air. Should they not act now, it is certain they will soon make their move. The custodians' history of resilience and unyielding ambition ensures that their ultimate return is not a matter of if, but when. The question remains, who will be ready when they come for their vengeance? They are the only known race that has ever attempted to breach the sacred celestial lands, a mysterious realm believed to be the birthplace of humanity. According to ancient legends, each human carries a unique life force linked to these celestial lands. This inherent connection between humanity and the celestial realm is thought to make conflict with the guardians of this land inevitable. Although there have been previous encounters between humans and the custodians, the giants aided humanity in their struggle, ensuring that history would likely repeat itself. The consequences of past mistakes cannot be ignored, as the current stakes are higher than ever before. The resets imposed by the custodians have only tightened their control over humanity, making each cycle of life increasingly constrained. Each reset strips away more of humanity's freedom, making life feel more controlled with every new generation. The humanity of today is nothing like the one of the past. Over time, manipulation and rigid control have severely diminished personal liberties, leaving little room for autonomy. The passing of each generation sees more of humanity's essence eroded by the increasing influence of the custodians. During the Great War, the giants and humans formed an alliance to resist the custodians. Despite their heroic efforts and the devastating blow they struck, including the death of a key custodian leader, victory was not achieved without a heavy. The casualties were immense, and while they succeeded in their mission, the war left deep scars on both sides, and the effects are still felt to this day. In the end, the human spirit remains resilient, but the challenges they face seem more daunting than ever. The custodians' increasing influence over the cycles of life makes any form of rebellion a costly endeavor. Humanity's connection to the celestial lands remains as vital as ever, but the path forward is fraught with danger and uncertainty. The custodians initiated a great reset, scattering human infants across vast lands. Many of these children, all under 7 months old, grew up unaware of their true origins. Their upbringing was engineered by the custodians' advanced technology, designed to guarantee control right from the start. This method ensured that the infants would be raised in ignorance, unable to uncover the secrets of their own history. The Anunnaki are a formidable and feared race, known for their relentless conquests and superior technology. Towering over most beings, they can reach up to 5 meters in height. Their skin, a mixture of yellow and green scales, and their eyes that glow in shades of yellow, red, or black make them a terrifying sight. Anyone who lays eyes on them immediately feels a wave of fear. In addition to their intimidating appearance, the Anunnaki are master builders. They construct monumental pyramids on every world they subjugate, marking their dominance and power. These structures serve as both a symbol of their control and a testament to their advanced engineering skills. Their technology is beyond comparison in the Great Dome, surpassing that of every other race. With their highly advanced weaponry and intricate portals that allow them to travel between worlds, the Anunnaki are able to invade and conquer civilizations effortlessly. This technological superiority has made them an even greater threat than the custodians themselves, cementing their reputation as one of the most dangerous races in existence. The Anunnaki and the custodians have a deeply intertwined and complex history. Though both races are driven by an unquenchable thirst for power, their interactions have not always been cooperative. In one monumental battle, the Anunnaki emerged victorious over the custodians. However, rather than continuing their war, the Anunnaki chose to form an unexpected alliance with the custodians. This newfound alliance ultimately shattered the dreams of human and giant forces who had long been fighting for their freedom, leading to their eventual downfall. The lands where the Anunnaki reside are harsh and unforgiving, characterized by arid deserts with little to no vegetation. Among the most dangerous aspects of their territory is the waters of Horus. From a distance, these waters appear serene and inviting, but beneath the surface lurk colossal, snake-like creatures, some stretching more than 55 meters in length. These waters serve as a deadly barrier, keeping unwanted visitors at bay and acting as a deterrent for any who might try to invade. Despite their fearsome reputation as conquerors, the Anunnaki are not merely brutal rulers. They are also master manipulators, shaping the societies they dominate with a delicate hand. Through myths, elaborate artworks, and distorted histories, they weave a web of deception, confusing the people under their control about their true origins and past. In this way, the Anunnaki ensure that their grip on power remains unchallenged. By controlling the narrative of history and exploiting the ignorance of those they rule, they maintain their dominance and continue to shape the course of civilizations, both human and giant alike. Often portrayed with animal-like heads and human bodies, they have ingrained their image into the cultures they dominate, ensuring that their supremacy is accepted as something natural. Despite their uneasy alliance, constant tension brews between the Anunnaki and the custodian. Both races vie for absolute control, and the truce they maintain is more a matter of practicality than genuine trust. For now, they rule together as the ultimate authorities within the Great Dome, but their rivalry remains a latent vulnerability. In contrast, the Venusians were a peaceful civilization, deeply focused on spiritual development. They did not prioritize the construction of weapons or fortresses, which made them appear vulnerable to the custodians, an aggressive colonizing force known for their ruthless tactics. Confident in their own superiority, the custodians arrived on Venus, expecting a swift and easy conquest. However, the moment they stepped onto the planet, they were met with an overwhelming and unrelenting storm that enveloped the entire surface. Initially, they believed the storm was a natural occurrence, but it didn't subside. What started as a passing disturbance stretched into weeks, and it became evident that this was no ordinary weather pattern. It was a defense mechanism. The Venusians had retreated into subterranean bunkers, equipped with highly advanced technologies that the custodians couldn't comprehend. Every attempt to breach the bunkers failed. The custodians tried explosives, blockades, and various other tactics, but the Venusians had anticipated all possibilities. Tension and frustration began to mount among the custodians, and dissent spread through their ranks. Their forces, once strong, started to crumble from within. As casualties continued to rise, a leader from the custodians requested a meeting with a Venusian representative. Though the details of their conversation are shrouded in secrecy, the custodians departed soon after, their invasion a complete failure. Venus remained unconquered. Its people were safe underground, and the custodians had learned a hard lesson about underestimating those they sought to dominate. Meanwhile, far beyond, in the Draco lands, lived the Eterminas. This race, known for their psychic abilities and exceptional technological prowess, existed in a realm far removed from the turmoil on Venus. Before the Eterminas became the advanced society they are today, they were once subjected to a brutal invasion by the custodians. During that time, they relied heavily on their deep understanding of the land and the extensive underground tunnels to mount a defense. However, despite their tactical knowledge, the custodians' far superior technology eventually broke through their resistance. In the wake of this defeat, the Terminus did not simply surrender. They rebuilt their society and transformed their lands into a flourishing center of innovation and progress. They also forged alliances, most notably with the Greys of Orion, which bolstered their defenses and provided them with new technology. Though peace has prevailed for now, the Eterminas have not forgotten their adversaries, and there remains a lingering desire for revenge, leaving the possibility of future conflict on the horizon. Mars, once a vibrant and prosperous world, holds a much darker tale. Its inhabitants placed great value on community and spiritual growth, often rejecting the idea of warfare. However, the arrival of the Anunnaki disrupted this peaceful existence. The Martians fought fiercely, giving everything they had in defense of their way of life. Despite their courage, it soon became apparent that victory was impossible. In the face of certain defeat, the remaining Martians made a heartbreaking decision. They chose death over submission, unwilling to live as slaves under the Anunnaki's rule. In their final defiant act, the Anunnaki were left stunned by the resolve of a dying civilization, marking the end of an era for Mars. Mars stood desolate, its once thriving civilization now obliterated, reduced to an empty shell. The Anunnaki transformed the planet into a vast experimental zone, a place where different races, including a small colony of humans, fought for survival under the watchful eyes of the Anunnaki and their custodians. Constant conflict ravaged the planet as various factions struggled for control. Meanwhile, Neptune's story was a different tale of endurance and betrayal. The Neptunians lived on a world battered by relentless sound storms and scarce resources, but they adapted, building towering cities along their fertile coastal areas. When the Anunnaki arrived, they initially presented themselves as allies, offering advanced technology in exchange for cooperation. But it was all a deception. They betrayed the Neptunians, stealing their resources and enslaving them. The Neptunians, though initially defeated, were not a race to remain subdued for long. They staged a fierce rebellion, making Triton the epicenter of a bloody war. The Anunnaki, realizing they could not maintain control, eventually withdrew from Neptune, leaving the planet free, but scarred by the violence that had unfolded. As for the Uranites, they were a race of giants with unparalleled vision, dwelling in the frozen expanse of Uranus. These beings thrived in their harsh environment, utilizing their extraordinary sight to navigate the icy terrain, and their society was built to endure the cold and the darkness. But their connection with the Anunnaki was one of caution. They never fully trusted the intergalactic conquerors, choosing instead to remain hidden in their remote land. Despite the harsh conditions, the Uranites' vision allowed them to see beyond their frozen world, always aware of the ever-shifting galactic dynamics. While the other races on Mars and Neptune fought for dominance, the Uranites observed, waiting for the right moment to assert their own power. At first, the custodians paid no attention to the Uranites, but everything changed when massive mineral deposits were found beneath their lands. This discovery sparked a ruthless campaign to enslave the Uranites, with their land being left scarred by deep craters from incessant mining. Now confined to a central region known as Titania, the Uranites are struggling to survive. Their once thriving civilization now stands as a mere shadow of its former glory. The expansive lands of Jupiter are home to numerous territories, each with its own distinct identity and culture. However, Jupiter's history is marked by constant division and conflict, much of which was instigated by the Anunnaki. In ancient times, the Anunnaki invaded Jupiter and sowed discord among the native factions, ensuring their control by keeping the inhabitants divided. This tactic resulted in almost perpetual warfare among the various groups, destabilizing the entire region. At the heart of Jupiter lies the land of Zeus, which serves as the seat of power. This central location is the epicenter of political and military control, where the most powerful factions converge. Despite the strife and turmoil surrounding it, Zeus remains a symbol of authority, albeit one that is often challenged by the chaos of the surrounding territories. The tension between the various factions continues to shape the landscape of Jupiter, with the Uranites' plight serving as a grim reminder of the destructive power of the custodians and the Anunnaki's long-lasting influence over the region. What was once a prosperous world now struggles under the weight of constant conflict and exploitation. The Zeus were born alongside another dominant group known as the Europeans, and together they ruled with an iron fist. They skillfully manipulated territories like Ganymede, Callisto, and Amalthea, pitting them against each other, ensuring that these lands remained fractured and unable to challenge the central authority. In the region of Mateas, a secluded and secretive land, only the Anunnaki and their allies were allowed to reside. The influence of the Anunnaki is pervasive here, with pyramids scattered across the landscape, serving as symbols of their control. Although this land is rich in history, it suffers from the divisions that were intentionally created to weaken its inhabitants. Nearby, the lands of Pegasus tell a story of both hope and sorrow. The Lantians, a race of winged beings, once flourished in this region. Known for their magnificent metallic wings and peaceful nature, they focused on exploration rather than conquest. Unfortunately, this peaceful disposition left them vulnerable when the custodians arrived. Initially, the Lantians sought cooperation, offering their advanced technology in the hopes of coexisting with the newcomers. However, the custodians betrayed them, seizing their resources and exploiting their advancements to further their own agenda. This betrayal shattered the Lantians' hopes for peaceful coexistence, and their once prosperous civilization began to crumble under the weight of exploitation. The custodians, having taken advantage of their trust, quickly overran the land, leaving the Lantians with little to defend themselves. The land, once a beacon of harmony, became a symbol of the devastation brought on by the custodians' greed. As the years passed, The story of the Lanshan's fall spread across the galaxy, serving as a warning to other civilizations about the dangers of trust in the face of imperial power. The influence of the Zeus and the Eurypians, along with the manipulations of the Anunnaki, continued to reshape the galaxy, leaving few places untouched by their grasp. The struggle for control persisted, and the hope of peace seemed increasingly distant. Too late to realize their mistake, the Lansans rose in revolt. Their resistance was fierce, but it ultimately proved futile, resulting in brutal massacres. Some claim the Lansans were completely eradicated, while others believe remnants of their kind still exist, hidden away. Their stories have since morphed into legends of celestial beings. Meanwhile, far across in Aldebaran, the Taurians stand as a powerful symbol of resilience and transformation. These towering figures, reminiscent of the ancient Minotaur, were once feared for their dark habit of consuming human flesh. However, as time passed, they evolved into protectors, assisting other races in their fight for survival. Their defiance against the custodians made them fierce enemies of the parasitic rulers residing in the Great Dome. Yet their empathy for life and dedication to safeguarding the oppressed earned them the respect and alliance of many endangered species. The Taurians are an imposing presence, with their horns often removed in childhood to mark the transition to adulthood. Their history is steeped in internal strife, particularly in the region of Aldebaran A, where so much blood was spilled that the area was eventually abandoned as a sign of reverence. Despite their grim past, the Taurians have become champions of those who suffer under tyrannical rule. Their once fearsome image now represents a beacon of hope for the oppressed. The Great Dome, which once symbolized control and parasitism, now faces the enduring strength of the Taurians, whose bond with other species grows ever stronger. The Lanshan's defeat remains a cautionary tale, their rebellion a tragic but fierce moment in history. However, the Taurians' rise from their own dark history speaks to the power of transformation and the enduring fight for freedom. They now reside across multiple worlds, their spiritual growth and technological mastery standing as a symbol of hope. The Saturnians, in contrast, have never experienced subjugation. Towering up to 14 meters, these massive beings are endowed with extraordinary psychic powers and advanced technology. When the Anunnaki attempted to invade their territory, they swiftly realized that conquest was futile. In response, they sought a truce. However, the Saturnians, unified in their decision-making, refused to assist the Anunnaki in their schemes, particularly their attempts to breach the celestial territories. The Saturnians are beings of peace and balance, depending on collective decisions to steer their civilization. Their influence has made a lasting impression on the known worlds, often mistaken for myth, due to manipulation by the custodian. Alongside the Anakin giants, they continue to stand as a powerful force against both the custodians and the Anunnaki. Meanwhile, in the Orion system, the Greys reign supreme. Their unmatched scientific and psychic abilities allow them to dominate, making them formidable opponents in any conflict. Despite the ongoing struggles, these entities continue to shape the fate of their respective worlds, each striving to protect their way of life from external threats. In this intricate web of power dynamics, the Saturnians remain unwavering in their resolve, guided by a collective spirit that resists any force that seeks to disrupt their harmony. These small beings have played a key role in the custodians' mission to conquer the celestial realms, though their experimentation on other races, especially humans, has tainted their reputation with cruelty. The Greys are notorious for their lack of compassion, as seen in countless accounts of abductions and genetic testing, Despite their advanced technology, the Greys have faced set during the era of Tartary. They sought to dominate the known world, only to be overthrown by a coalition of giants and humans. Their leader's death further fueled their hatred for humanity. While they have successfully colonized separate lands, they have never been able to control a complete self-sustained environment on their own. In contrast, the Plodians are tall and ethereal beings, renowned for their spiritual insight and commitment to bettering life. Their ancestors fled to the Plodes after surviving the Battle of Asgard. Though they are generally benevolent, their early alliance with the Anunnaki left them vulnerable to manipulation, resulting in periodic catastrophes in their homeland. Although they occasionally ventured into the familiar territories, they frequently found it difficult to coexist with humans and chose isolation over interaction. The lands where the clones once roamed serve as a grim reminder of failed experiments. Created by the Anunnaki as a testing site, this environment soon became a breeding ground for clones. The escape of these clones triggered widespread chaos, which eventually led to the abandonment of the area. Today, the place stands as a desolate and eerie wasteland, with laboratories left in an untouched state. Meanwhile, the reptilians, a race of assertive and dominant beings, have established their own secluded territories far from the known world. They prefer to dwell in underground cities and deliberately keep a cautious distance from other civilizations. Renowned for their technological advancements and military strength, they have resisted all efforts to integrate with other societies. While they occasionally interact with the custodians, their true loyalties remain a subject of speculation. Some believe they may align themselves with the custodians in future conflicts, yet their ultimate intentions remain clouded in secrecy. The celestial realms remain an enigma, untouched by the parasitic races that have spread their dominance across countless worlds. These hidden lands, inaccessible even to the custodians and the Anunnaki, despite their relentless efforts, are said to guard secrets deeply connected to the very core of humanity. These secrets, fiercely protected, remain beyond the grasp of any conqueror. Numerous extraterrestrial worlds lie beyond the celestial realms, each home to its own unique struggles and tales. Some prosper in peace, seemingly overlooked by the parasitic forces, perhaps because their resources held no value to the invaders. Others, however, met a far darker fate. The parasitic races frequently invaded emerging civilizations, plundering their lands, exploiting their resources, and distorting their histories. In the wake of these invasions, only shattered worlds remained, with the once bright dreams of these civilizations extinguished. Humanity, too, bears the scars of this relentless exploitation. While physically unscathed, it remains spiritually fractured, its potential systematically stifled. The parasitic forces did not only ravage the land and resources, but sought to suppress the very essence of what made humanity unique. Over time, this suppression ensured that humanity's true power was kept hidden, buried beneath layers of manipulation. For generations, the potential for a greater existence remained dormant, held captive by forces far beyond the control of the people themselves. It is said that those who ventured into the celestial lands in search of answers found only more questions. Ancient guardians, untouched by time, stand watch over these territories, preventing any from unlocking the mysteries held within. Many civilizations, in their desperation to understand the true nature of the universe, have tried and failed to breach the boundaries of these sacred lands. Each attempt only strengthens the belief that these lands hold the key to understanding humanity's lost legacy, a legacy that was stolen long before the first civilizations began to rise. Yet, hope remains for those who still seek the truth. While the parasitic races continue to sow their chaos across the stars, there are whispers of a hidden force, one that is not bound by the laws of conquest or exploit. This force, believed to be deeply connected to the celestial lands, may one day awaken, offering humanity a chance to reclaim what was lost. Until then, the struggle for freedom continues, a battle fought not only in the physical realms, but within the hearts and minds of all those who dare to dream of a brighter future. The true aim of the colonizers was not merely to conquer, but to sever humanity's deep connection to what is known as the source of life. This essence is a rare gift, one that no other race has access to, as it links them to the celestial realms. It is what sets humanity apart from all others. For the colonizers, however, it has always been a force beyond their control. Despite their immense power, they have never been able to influence or manipulate this sacred truth. This weakness has long been a source of their fear, for the very existence of the source threatens their hold over everything. While the physical chains of oppression may seem heavy and suffocating, the human spirit remains beyond their reach. Over the vast expanse of the dome, certain races have managed to resist the parasitic forces. They endured through hardship, adapted to challenges, and in some instances, they even triumphed. These rare victories serve as powerful reminders to humanity that survival is still within reach, that hope remains, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. The celestial lands stand as an enduring symbol of this hope. They represent the untapped potential of what humanity can achieve when they remain true to their essence. These lands are a beacon for those who believe that resilience, spirit, and unity are the keys to overcoming the darkness that threatens them. In the end, the colonizers' attempts to suppress this connection will never be enough, for the source of life cannot be destroyed. It will always endure, no matter how much they try to erase it. This truth is the one thing they can never control, and it is the force that will eventually lead to their downfall. Untouched and pure, these lands stand as a powerful symbol of both resistance and renewal. Despite the persistent efforts of parasitic forces, they have remained untainted, which only serves to highlight their significance. These territories might hold the key to understanding what humanity has lost, and potentially what it can reclaim. Deep within their borders may lie a path to freedom, one that has yet to be completely forgotten. For now, the celestial lands are beyond reach, but their mere existence is a reminder of an inner strength that cannot be stolen, only rediscovered. There are countless other worlds that exist beyond the familiar ones. Each of these places tells its own unique story. Some of these worlds have been fortunate, living in harmony and thriving without facing major disruption. Perhaps they were overlooked by colonizers who saw no value in them, or maybe they developed too late to catch the invaders' interest. Regardless, not all worlds shared the same fortune. In the vastness of the cosmos, there are those that remain untouched, much like these lands, and there are those that were ravaged by greed and exploitation. The contrast between them highlights the stark reality of existence in the universe, where some flourish while others are consumed. But even in the face of destruction, there remains hope that one day these worlds can rise again. The celestial lands, though distant, continue to serve as a symbol of what could be. They are a testament to what humanity could achieve if it learns from its past mistakes and rediscovers the strength within. Their story is not just one of survival, but of potential for renewal, for change. and for a future where humanity might once again thrive, free from the parasitic forces that have long sought to control it. Many lands were invaded before they had the chance to flourish. The people of these lands were left in ruins, their histories erased, and their dreams shattered. Invaders took everything they could, leaving nothing but scars and voids. This tale of devastation is shared by humanity. Ages ago, their rightful place in the world was seized, and now they struggle to reclaim it. The colonizers still hold power, slowly draining humanity's spirit and essence. Though people continue to exist, their inner strength and true potential are diminishing. The greatest threat isn't destruction of the body, but the day when humanity forgets the power they once held to transform their world. Three primary colonizing races continue to dominate humanity and many other civilizations. They maintain their control through fear, deceit, and manipulation. But there remains a glimmer of hope. Some races have managed to break free from their chains, offering valuable lessons in resistance and rebellion. These liberated peoples are not only sharing their knowledge, but also extending their hands to help humanity rediscover its power and gain freedom. At the core of everything lies a profound enigma: the celestial lands. These enigmatic realms remain untouched by any colonizer. Despite their advanced technologies and immense power, they have failed to breach these territories. The celestial lands guard a secret, a source of life that is uniquely human. This is something beyond the grasp of invaders, an energy they cannot dominate or destroy. They may alter the world outside, but the vital force hidden within these lands remains impervious to their influence. William Morris had always been driven by an insatiable curiosity and an unwillingness to accept limitations imposed by others. Born in the known world, he grew up beneath the shadow of towering ice walls and enigmatic barriers, which seemed to confine humanity both physically and mentally. These walls were no natural phenomenon. They were crafted by those who aimed to restrain and control. Yet, where others saw insurmountable barriers, William perceived only an invitation, a call to venture beyond. Defying the odds, William set out to cross these ice walls, determined to uncover the secrets that lay on the other side. He embarked on a journey into the unknown, where the promise of discovery beckoned. His resolve was unshaken, for he knew that the answers he sought lay in a place few dared to imagine. With each step, he moved closer to the celestial lands, driven not just by his desire to explore, but by an inner knowledge that his destiny was intertwined with the secrets they held. What lay ahead was a mystery waiting to be unraveled, and William Morris was prepared to confront it head-on. What William uncovered beyond the horizon was far more than just an uncharted land. It was a revelation. The Ancestral Republic, as it was known, was a place untouched by the oppressive forces that controlled his homeland. In this new world, the people flourished in an environment of freedom, progressing in ways that the known lands could scarcely imagine. Their society was built upon a foundation of resilience and knowledge, and it quickly became the home William had longed for. In this land of endless promise, William encountered a woman whose unyielding spirit mirrored his own. She was a native of the Republic, and her life had been shaped by the sacrifices made by her ancestors, who had fought valiantly to safeguard their freedom. Together, they forged a life imbued with purpose, and from this union, their daughter was born. She became the embodiment of two worlds, one rooted in struggle and limitation, the other in hope and infinite potential. As she grew, their daughter listened intently to the stories her parents shared. From her mother, she learned of the fierce battles that had been fought to protect the Republic, of the sacrifices made to ensure its survival. These stories filled her with a deep sense of pride and understanding of the values that had shaped her world. In the quiet moments of reflection, the daughter often pondered the unique blend of legacies that flowed through her veins, the struggle for freedom on one side, and the boundless possibilities of a life built on those sacrifices on the other. The journey of her parents was not just a story of survival, but a testament to the power of hope and determination. She grew up hearing stories from her father about the known lands, a place teeming with untapped potential, yet burdened by those who sought to suppress it. Her father's bravery in crossing the barriers, combined with her mother's unyielding resolve to honor their ancestors, instilled in her a deep sense of destiny. They had sacrificed everything for the cause of freedom, as her mother would proudly say with a touch of longing. These words left a lasting impression on her, sparking an intense desire to understand the world her father had once known. She longed to walk on the soil of the known lands, to retrace her father's steps, and to unite two worlds that had been divided for so long. William Morris was more than just a seafaring man. He was a symbol of relentless determination, a man driven by a grand vision for a freer humanity. At 34, he had already secured his place as a legend. His journey, however, was not defined by mere chance. It was shaped by a fateful encounter with a mysterious man named Butler, whose presence was cloaked in secrecy and intrigue. This meeting would alter the course of his life and push him further down the path of rebellion. Morris's unwavering refusal to accept the status quo set him apart from others of his time. His life had become a testament to the power of conviction, a conviction that would lead him into increasingly dangerous and uncertain territories. Yet his resolve never faltered. His every step was guided by a dream of breaking free from the chains that bound his world, to create something that could offer true freedom to those who yearned for it. The legacy of his actions would leave an indelible mark on the world. But Morris was not alone in his struggle. His mother's tales, his father's courage, and his own undying determination to forge a better future had all conspired to shape him into the man he was. Through their sacrifices, he understood that the fight for freedom was not just about defying authority, but about creating a world where potential could flourish, untapped and unrestrained. William, much like Butler, was no stranger to navigating uncharted territory. Born in the ancestral Republic, a land situated beyond the imposing ice walls, he was no rookie to the battles humanity had to fight in order to reclaim what had been lost. His skills weren't just limited to reading maps or using compasses. As the leader of the Naval Council in his republic, Butler had become the driving force behind high-stakes missions that ventured into unknown lands. His reputation was built on bold strategies and flawless execution. Together, William and Butler formed a partnership that would test the very limits of strategy, bravery, and human resolve. They assembled a team of seasoned navigators, all with the singular goal of crossing the treacherous polar ice walls that had stood for generations as a barrier between the known world and the unexplored territories. This wasn't an impulsive act of heroism, it was the culmination of careful planning. Butler, with his extensive experience of crossing these perilous icy expanses, was the natural choice to guide the mission. His intimate knowledge of the route, gained from countless expeditions, transformed what seemed impossible into something achievable. The team wasn't just embarking on a journey, they were about to embark on a calculated operation that could change everything. With Butler as their leader, they began their perilous trek into the unknown. Each step a reminder that what they were doing was not just an act of bravery, but a feat of human endurance and strategy. For William, the journey was much more than a mere physical crossing. It was a journey of profound self-realization. The mission itself was filled with peril. The walls they sought to breach were not just solid barriers. They represented the power of a parasitic force that thrived on keeping humanity fragmented and suppressed. Every step of the way, there were dangers, hostile forces, an unforgiving environment, and the constant threat of being discovered. Despite these challenges, the team moved forward with unwavering determination, fueled by the conviction that the lands known to them were never meant to be imprisoned. Butler and Williams' collaboration was more than just a partnership of intellect. It was a shared purpose. Butler, having ventured into the known lands more times than history would ever acknowledge, had infiltrated their inner sanctums to lay the groundwork for this pivotal moment. Their alliance went beyond mere strategy. It was a vision of a liberated humanity, one that could rise against its oppressors and reclaim the freedom that had been stolen for so long. While the journey ahead was treacherous, both William and Butler understood that waiting for change to come was not an option. They were determined to make it happen themselves, no matter the cost. Every obstacle, every threat they encountered, only strengthened their resolve to see their vision through to the end. They knew the road would be difficult, but it was a road they had no choice but to walk. Action was the only option, even though the odds were heavily against them. This mission wasn't merely about survival, it was about preserving hope. William and Butler weren't just trying to escape familiar territory, they were setting the foundation for something much larger. Their efforts were part of a backup plan to safeguard humanity's future before the inevitable reset could erase it all. This wasn't only a rebellion against the colonizers, it was a race against time, fighting to protect the essence of humanity from being wiped out completely. The lands they sought, known as the Ancestral Republic, were concealed by towering ice walls and rugged mountains. This hidden territory was home to the survivors of a devastating war, the descendants of the last remnants of humanity before the Great Reset. These people carried the legacy of an earlier time, a time when everything they knew was destroyed. The Ancestral Republic wasn't just a refuge, it represented endurance and survival, a testament to their ancestors' strength and resilience. Long ago, their forebears had been forced to flee from a catastrophic war. The conflict had left them with only one choice: escape or die. The land they now inhabited was a symbol of their survival, the last bastion of hope for a civilization that had almost been lost forever. The mission William and Butler embarked on had a greater purpose than they could fully comprehend. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. The people of the Ancestral Republic held the key to a future that could outlast the cycle of destruction and rebirth that had plagued the world. Time was running out, and every decision they made could either pave the way for a new beginning or seal humanity's doom. Those who survived crossed the barriers and started new lives far from the ruins. These early settlers came from different corners of the known world, each bringing their unique languages, traditions, and stories. As time passed, these distinct groups began to blend, forming a cohesive community that developed a shared identity, yet still held tightly to the memories of the world they had once known. In the Republic, people continue to honor the sacrifices that made their survival possible. A tale often retold is that of the giants, enormous beings who helped many families escape the devastation. It is said that without them, survival would have been impossible. The elders often speak of how the giants carried children and families to safety, saving lives when all hope seemed lost. Their acts of bravery and selflessness are remembered and passed down through generations. The people of the Republic communicate using a blend of languages, with the native tongue being the most widely spoken. However, there is a strong effort to preserve the older languages, especially in the smaller communities where the roots of tradition run deep. Many elders are dedicated to passing down the linguistic heritage, ensuring the survival of these ancient tongues for future generations. Despite the passing of time, the Republic remains a place where the past and present coexist. The stories of the giants, the sacrifice, and the struggles of their ancestors continue to shape the values of the people. The memory of those who came before them remains a guiding light, reminding them of the importance of unity, resilience, and the preservation of their rich cultural heritage. Larger cities often drift away from their ancestral roots, yet there is an ongoing collective effort to preserve the connection to their past. The war that forced their forebears into exile was a tragic of millions lost their lives, including a courageous grandfather who fought to the bitter end. His granddaughter often shares this story, deeply moved by the sacrifices made. At the time, her mother was just an infant, saved by her grandmother, who carried her to safety. These poignant tales are told with sorrow and reverence, as a reminder of the immense price paid for survival. Centuries ago, when the world was still full of hope for freedom, humans forged an unexpected alliance with a race often relegated to myth, the giants. These were not the monstrous creatures of old legends, but mighty beings who saw great potential in humankind. They hailed from beyond the icy tundras and towering mountains, drawn by the belief that united, they could overthrow the reign of their oppressive rulers, the custodians. At the center of this monumental alliance stood the mighty Tartary, a flourishing civilization where humans and giants worked together as equals. It was a place where dreams of freedom were no longer just that, but tangible goals being achieved through mutual respect and effort. This land became the heart of a new era, where shared purpose and understanding built a thriving society. But as time passed, the mighty Tartary began to fade into legend, and the alliance between the humans and giants grew weaker. Yet the stories of that great civilization, where two races coexisted and thrived together, they serve as both a beacon of hope and a solemn reminder of what was lost in the tides of history. It was a land of innovation, strength, and unity, a living proof of what could be accomplished when differences were set aside. Tartary stood as a beacon of hope, where its people dared to dream of a world free from the control of their colonizers. But such boldness could not go unchallenged. The custodians, whose power extended over the known world, perceived this unity as a threat to their rule. Without hesitation, they moved to destroy it. The custodians did not merely seek to dismantle Tartary, they aimed to erase it completely from history. Maps were redrawn, histories were altered, and the once noble giants, Tartary's allies, were transformed into villains in the stories that survived. They were portrayed as enemies of the gods, their true purpose twisted and buried under layers of lies. The giants, however, had only ever wished to protect humanity. Their mission was to safeguard the spiritual evolution of mankind, a potential the custodians feared above all else. For the colonizers, domination of the physical realm was not sufficient. They sought to control the very essence of human growth, to stifle the light that might have freed their subjects from oppression. In their haste to suppress any challenge to their rule, the custodians ensured that the truth would remain hidden. But in the shadows, the memory of Tartary lived on, its legacy a symbol of defiance against tyranny. Despite the efforts to erase it, the spirit of unity and innovation could never be completely extinguished. They aimed to crush the core of human determination and hope. The fight for freedom came with immense sacrifice. The alliance between giants and humans ignited a conflict unlike any other. Their united might shook the very foundations of the custodians' power. Victory seemed almost within their grasp, yet the custodians never relented. In the end, the battlefields across the known world were stained with the blood of those who had dared to dream. The ocean surrounding these lands became silent, resting places for the fallen, a somber reminder of the cost of resistance. After the defeat, the giants vanished. They withdrew into the shadows, preferring to remain unseen rather than risk causing further damage to humanity. Their retreat wasn't a sign of defeat, but rather a demonstration of wisdom. They recognized the consequences of their actions and realized that the time for true liberation had not yet arrived. The Great War erupted with such swiftness and intensity that there was no opportunity for preparation or full comprehension of its scale. The custodians, unwavering in their approach, launched a relentless assault on the major cities. Their strategy was both ruthless and methodical: strike directly at the heart of power, tear apart the core, and let the rest of the structure collapse on its own. The resulting chaos was their weapon, a tactic that had been honed over countless conquests. In the days before the war, the giants had warned humanity about the custodians' dark intentions. They spoke of a plan to poison the air, a tactic already used in distant lands beyond the domes. At the time, little was known about those far-off territories, or the full scope of the custodians' greed and malevolence. The giants, drawing from their ancient knowledge, had shared crucial insights into the custodians' methods and weaknesses. They revealed the true extent of the custodians' relentless pursuit of control, helping humanity prepare for the coming storm. This collaboration between the giants and humans led to the creation of the Great Tartary, a symbol of resistance. However, this alliance was not formed overnight. It took years of meticulous planning, unyielding effort, and a shared vision for freedom. Through unwavering unity and strategic organization, the Great Tartary rapidly developed, becoming a formidable challenge to the custodians' reign. Its progress was unmatched, drawing the attention of the custodians, who had long considered themselves the uncontested rulers of the world. The people of Tartary, emboldened by the giants' wisdom and their own resolve, faced the coming battles with unshakable determination. The custodians had underestimated the power of this alliance, believing that their typical methods of domination would be sufficient to crush any resistance. But the unity between the humans and the giants, combined with the strength of their resolve, proved to be an unprecedented force. Tartary was no longer just a land. It was a beacon of hope, challenging the custodians in ways they had never anticipated. Everything moved with the precision of a giant clock, reflecting the determination and creativity of the people who had shaped it. The giants contributed their immense strength and wisdom, while humans brought their resourcefulness and drive. Working together, they built a society that could not be ignored by the custodians. However, the custodians, known for their sly manipulation and cunning tactics, were reluctant to recognize the growing threat from Tartary. At that time, the world was not divided by the walls of ice and other barriers that exist now. The continents, though somewhat altered, were more interconnected and free. After the war, the custodians seized their chance to reshape the lands, creating a new world order that hid their near defeat. They twisted the very environment to their will, erasing all traces of Tartary's rebellion and ensuring that its defiance would not be remembered. To maintain their control, the custodians labeled the giants as barbarians, mocking their strength and unity. They then turned their hatred towards humanity, making them the target of their deepest disdain. The custodians used their influence to vilify the giants and twist the truth, effectively rewriting history to conceal the threat that had once stood against them. In the aftermath, the custodians made sure that Tartary's legacy was lost to time. The giants' valor was diminished in the eyes of the world, and humanity was left to suffer the wrath of those who sought to rewrite the past. The world, now shaped by the custodians, would never be the same again. The war was not merely a struggle for land, but for the very core of freedom and existence. The custodians, driven by fear, aimed to sever the ancient connection between giants and humans, unable to comprehend the power of unity between such mighty forces. Despite their efforts, the custodians eventually regained control over the known world. However, the memory of Tartary's greatness and the sacrifices made by those who fought to protect it endure. This history, hidden beneath layers of deceit and distortion, serves as a poignant reminder of what might have been a near triumph over an enemy thought to be unbeatable. Even today, the echoes of that great war and the bravery of those who stood against it continue to resonate, waiting for the day humanity will rise again to complete what was begun. The fall of the magnificent cities began with a harbinger, an oppressive black smoke that spread through the streets like a deliberate, cruel act of revenge. This dark cloud was not just a physical presence, but a symbol of the systematic destruction aimed at dismantling an empire founded on hope and unity. It was as if the very air was thick with impending doom, suffocating everything in its path. The smoke signaled the beginning of the end, a reminder that even the mightiest civilizations could fall when faced with relentless forces intent on their downfall. The giants, once the protectors of humanity, stood tall against the advancing tide of destruction. They fought with every ounce of strength, aware that the fate of both their people and the humans they had sworn to defend hung in the balance. Yet, despite their might, the custodians' strategy was ruthless and cunning, designed to break the bond between the two races. As the cities crumbled and the world descended into chaos, the giants' once immovable resolve began to waver, realizing that their fight, no matter how fierce, could not undo the damage already done. In the aftermath, the world lay in ruins, but the story of Tartary's glory was far from forgotten. The remnants of the great cities whispered of a time when freedom and unity were not just ideals, but lived true. Though the custodians had won the battle, the war for humanity's spirit was far from over. The struggle, though seemingly lost, had left a mark that would eventually stir a new generation to rise and seek justice for what had been taken. The great empire of Tartary once stood as a symbol of unity between humans and giants, a time when collaboration flourished, blending knowledge and technology to build a society resilient enough to resist oppression. The giants, with their vast size and superior intellect, shared tools and ideas with humanity that far exceeded their wildest dreams. This rare partnership led to extraordinary progress as both races worked together to forge a world capable of challenging the oppressive custodians. However, despite their remarkable achievements, the long-anticipated war came far sooner than they had ever imagined. The defense of Tartary, although formidable, was insufficient to withstand the brutal assault of the custodians. Their relentless strikes focused directly on the heart of the empire, causing widespread destruction. Cities that once thrived fell into ruin, while the morale of the Tartars crumbled under the pressure. To make matters worse, a catastrophic flood swept through the land, further decimating the already battered territories. In these dark times, the spirits of the people wavered, and the empire seemed to be on the brink of collapse. Amidst the devastation, hope remained, flickering like a dying flame. The Anakin, a faction of giants who had once joined forces with humanity, stood firm in the face of overwhelming odds. With their advanced technology and unwavering resolve, they fought back fiercely, determined to protect their world from the custodians' cruel grip. Their bravery and innovation in battle offered a glimmer of hope, yet the war raged on, and the fate of Tartary hung precariously in the balance. As the conflict intensified, the strength of the Tartars' alliance was tested to its limits. Each battle fought, every strategy employed, was a desperate attempt to turn the tide of the war. With each passing day, the empire's survival seemed more uncertain, but the combined efforts of humans and giants continued to defy the darkness that threatened to consume them. In the face of such adversity, they refused to give up, fighting for a future where hope might once again shine bright over the lands of Tartary. Not all giants were united in their stance. Some, feeling the overwhelming odds against them, decided to forgo the fight, convinced that resistance would only lead to their downfall. Despite this internal divide, the flame of defiance still burned brightly in Tartary. For a fleeting moment there was a glimmer of hope, a belief that true freedom could be within reach. However, that hope came at a devastating price. The custodians, weakened by the relentless defiance, retaliated with brutal force. Their vengeance was ruthless, leaving the land scarred and broken. They poisoned the air, distorted climates, and wiped away entire histories. The known world was reshaped with walls of ice, as the memory of Tartary was buried beneath layers of manipulation and deceit. This war, however, transcended the physical realm. It was a spiritual battle at its core. The custodians understood that in order to truly subjugate humanity, they had to destroy its very soul. To achieve this, they established a system of control so pervasive that it infiltrated every aspect of life. This system was designed to strip people of their ability to question, to hope, and most dangerously, to resist. The chains that bound them were invisible, yet unbreakable. The people of Tartary found themselves not just fighting for survival, but for the very essence of their being. What had started as a fight for freedom became a fight to preserve their humanity in a world determined to erase it. Song qua tunmiren, hojavwitralai frictel, suk for kunjung kabjan nin le doi tra, yula sue true, nin idam texlo kauchoe kua hu, il bi chigyu, bitase kai va bi twinen, midrain and bong sil mriathuer, ven koen chia sang fenkang, ninjoi konglu, medu fungo jabi dembel, ven chuvjud, raging strombi, hofer cho, furbo korshin, de tujabo q krenin I sing, dado perhin so suhin sing ko ho, lawen leven ho joy, confetata gil de me, najoring gay haki dom bong sim ap dom, ven koninjori kun chu, vunki magnisa poinenjori balve confela kunga poho, mela kelanto chung jiv tin. Ho bien so churut sang le no dui, owen le do tra, sunun so king, kunteni no pub trade tombola mehern, ke cho san baujoi teki shelib cho, deda chodang kino dorsham lula, retsitre damag sang daudoe, itre kun no sho turn tin, nia ho kode ga ferbiet. The ongoing struggle is not just a fight for power or territory, but for the very soul of humanity. Those who know the truth continue to battle, keeping the spark of freedom alive. Even though the mighty cities have crumbled, their legacy endures through those who refuse to let the light of hope be extinguished. As long as there are murmurs of defiance, the possibility of a brighter future remains intact. The last reset in the known world was unlike anything ever seen. Destructive, methodical, and merciless, it marked the end of a time when humans and giants had almost freed themselves from the parasitic forces that ruled their existence. For a brief moment, victory seemed within reach. The giants, armed with advanced knowledge and unmatched strength, had joined humanity's fight, and for a while they seemed to have the advantage. But then the tides shifted, and with the fall of the four great centers, their fate was sealed. Despite the overwhelming destruction, the resistance endures. Their resolve is stronger than ever, fueled by the memories of a time when freedom was not just a dream. The fall of the great cities did not mark the end of their fight, but rather a new beginning. The hope that humanity and the giants could one day reclaim their world persists in the hearts of those who remain. The world may have been reset, but the desire for justice and a new world order has not died. It's this very hope that continues to fuel the rebellion. As the war dragged on, the forces of the oppressors seemed unbeatable. Their power was vast, and their tactics were ruthless. Yet there remained a glimmer of hope. The giants, though seemingly defeated, were not. They may have fallen, but they had left behind knowledge and technology that could still tip the balance. Humanity clung to this hope, even as the oppressors tightened their grip. The future may have seemed bleak, but the fight was far from over. And so the resistance persists, with every small victory feeding the flame of rebellion. The oppressors may control much, but they do not control the hearts of those who refuse to surrender. The battle rages on, not for land or power, but for something far greater, the preservation of humanity itself. The war brought devastation beyond imagination. Once thriving cities were now desolate, their streets either consumed by flames or cloaked in darkness. The custodians, determined to restore order, resorted to unfathomable weapons of destruction. There were rumors of devices that could turn the living into stone, echoing horrific deeds from ages long past. Those who managed to survive spoke of a nightmare, homes lost, families torn apart, and a relentless flood of mud and water that swept away everything in its path. This flood, now known as the Mud Flood, was no ordinary natural disaster. It was a purposeful event, a strategic move designed to reset the world. The custodians had launched it ahead of schedule, cutting short the growth cycle they had orchestrated for humanity. Normally, resets occurred only after a civilization had reached a predetermined age, a harsh and controlled experiment. But the war's devastation had forced the custodians to act sooner than expected. In the aftermath, the survivors emerged into a world that had been radically changed. The remnants of the past lay buried beneath layers of deception and manipulation. The world they inherited was one of confusion and uncertainty, with traces of the old world hidden in plain sight, yet distorted beyond recognition. The new reality was harsh, shaped by forces beyond human comprehension. The custodians, though unseen, had left their mark, manipulating history and humanity's development. What remained was a fractured society, trying to rebuild amidst the ruins of their once great civilization. The monuments and structures from the ancient world stood tall, enduring time and conflict, Yet they were now remnants of a rewritten past. The guardians twisted the truth, blending facts with fabrications, crafting a narrative so convoluted that unraveling the true history became a near impossibility. The reset was catastrophic. All adults and children older than 7 months were wiped out, their existence erased as though they had never been. Only infants, handpicked by the custodes, were spared. These young survivors grew up in a world carefully designed to suppress their spiritual and intellectual growth. The custodians controlled every element of this new reality, ensuring humanity could never again approach its true potential or break free. The intervention of the giants marked a pivotal moment, a point when the veil of ignorance began to lift. They brought knowledge of the lands beyond the dome, of life outside, and the hidden truths behind the manipulation. This revelation shattered the carefully constructed illusions, exposing the mechanisms of control. The survivors, now aware of the forces that had shaped their reality, were left with the heavy burden of this newfound awareness. Though the custodians maintained their tight grip, the knowledge shared by the giants offered a flicker of hope. The survivors now understood the existence of a world beyond their fabricated reality, a world of untapped possibilities. The knowledge, however, was both a gift and a curse. While it revealed the truth, it also highlighted the deep chasm between the world they had inherited and the one they were meant to inhabit. In this world of manipulation, the giant's message became both a challenge and a call to action. They had opened a door, but the path ahead was fraught with danger. The survivors would have to decide whether to remain passive in the face of their new knowledge or to fight for a future where humanity could once again reach its full potential. The knowledge gained by humanity had become a threat in the eyes of the custodians. The reset was not merely a punishment. It was a strategic measure to suppress the awakening of the masses. Picture a world confined within a greenhouse, where every element of the environment is controlled. The soil can be tainted or enriched at the will of those in charge, and the light itself can either sustain or obliterate life. This was the reality of the known lands, a world carefully sculpted by unseen hands. The most recent reset served as a stark reminder of the custodians' immense power, their deep-seated fear of losing control, and their readiness to sacrifice entire generations to preserve their dominance. Yet, despite the darkness, remnants of the past, monuments and stories of the ancient world persisted, fragmented traces of a forgotten legacy waiting to be rediscovered. The spirit of those who once fought for freedom still lingered, acquired, but unyielding in their defiance against the forces determined to erase them. William Morris, burdened by this relentless anguish, could not escape the weight of his thoughts. Each day the suffering consumed him more deeply. The sorrow was ever present, gnawing at his resolve as he sought a way to break free from the grip of the custodian's control. He had returned to the land of his birth, a place shadowed by the suffering of those he once called brothers. The agony of witnessing countless lives lost to war, manipulation, and disease weighed heavily on him. Yet, despite the growing burden, his resolve remained unwavering. His days were consumed with devising a way to return and rescue those trapped in this endless cycle of despair. To William, these lands were more than just a memory. They were home, inhabited by people who deserved nothing less than freedom and the truth. But the world beyond his homeland was fraught with dangers of its own. The custodians, restless and driven by vengeance, had begun to extend their influence. Territories that had once been untouched, silent sanctuaries, were now under siege. What was once safe had now become a battlefield. Among the most unsettling discoveries of the custodians was the existence of a city inhabited by giants and giant humans. These beings, branded as traitors by the custodians, had dared to challenge their authority. In doing so, they had developed technology that rivaled even the most advanced creations of their oppressors. The custodians' growing power seemed unstoppable, yet the city of giants posed a unique challenge. Its inhabitants had not only developed impressive machinery, but had also mastered techniques that could disrupt the custodians' dominance. William knew that this hidden city might hold the key to turning the tide of the ongoing conflict. But getting there and convincing the giants to ally with him was another challenge altogether. As the walls of his homeland closed in around him, William's mind raced. He had returned not just to fight, but to ignite a revolution fueled by the hope that these lands could be freed from the chokehold of oppression. The road ahead was fraught with peril, but for the first time in years, he felt a spark of something greater than just survival. It was a sense of purpose, a feeling that victory was not just a dream, but a possibility within reach. The custodians launched a fierce assault on the city, but their efforts proved futile. The Anakim, powerful allies of the giants, had fortified the city's defenses to an extraordinary degree. The custodians were defeated, humiliated, and had no choice but to retreat to their known lands. This crushing defeat left them shaken, with a deep fear that they might lose their grip on their precious colony. In a frantic bid to retain control, the custodians began fortifying the walls, separating the known lands from the mysterious truth beyond. They deployed advanced technology and military power, constructing a seemingly impenetrable barrier. Treaties were quickly signed, and military bases were scattered throughout the region, all designed with one goal in mind: to keep the truth hidden from humanity. The custodians, long regarded as the masters of control and manipulation, had always believed their colony was unassailable. However, unbeknownst to them, a network of infiltrators had been quietly growing beneath their radar. Over 14,000 strong, this clandestine force had been steadily building power in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Despite their best efforts, the custodians' sense of security began to crumble as their hidden enemies gained strength. Every move they made to reinforce their defenses seemed to be met with a silent, unseen resistance. The once proud custodians, accustomed to having everything under their control, now found themselves facing an uncertain future. Their belief in the invulnerability of their prized colony slowly started to waver. As the tension mounted, the custodians realized they were up against more than just a physical threat. The growing network of infiltrators was not only a military challenge, but an ideological one as well. The truth they had worked so hard to conceal was inching closer to being exposed. The walls they had erected to protect their secret began to feel less like a shield and more like a ticking time bomb. These ancestors hailed from the Ancestral Republic, a product of the bold Morris Butler plan. This plan was forged through the collaboration of influential leaders and various races, all united in their covert battle for the liberation of humanity. The mission was intricate yet clear: to awaken the oppressed and expose the truths concealed behind the custodian's veil of deception. For years, these infiltrators operated in secrecy, subtly weaving their influence into crucial areas such as politics, institutions, and even the very organizations the custodians relied on to maintain their control. Each move was executed with precision, for even the slightest hint of their presence could trigger disastrous repercussions. potentially leading to an immediate reset of the entire operation. They tread carefully, balancing their work of spreading knowledge about humanity's spiritual potential and its long-forgotten history, all while evading the all-seeing gaze of the custodians. Infiltrating the known lands was a monumental challenge, as the defenses were formidable. These lands were shielded by advanced technology, including radar systems capable of triggering earthquakes, while military bases patrolled the borders with relentless vigilance. The infiltrators had no room for error. Every action, every communication had to be calculated. The custodians' eyes were everywhere, watching for even the smallest sign of rebellion. To succeed, these infiltrators had to move like shadows, always staying one step ahead of those who sought to maintain the old order. The stakes were high, but their mission was too important to fail. Despite the dangers, they pressed on, knowing that the future of humanity rested on their shoulders. Every whisper of truth, every bit of knowledge they passed on to the oppressed was a blow struck against the system of control. They knew that, eventually, the veil of lies would be torn down, and humanity would rise to reclaim its lost heritage. But first, they had to survive the relentless hunt of the custodians, who would stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried. However, the infiltrators, leveraging cutting-edge technology and unmatched resolve, managed to evade detection. For a period, their operations seemed uncontainable until a critical event altered the course of their plans. Off the coast of the Antarctic Peninsula, which the infiltrators referred to as False Antarctica, a faction from the ancestral Republican forces launched an assault on a custodian military installation while navigating on an icebreaker. In an attempt to stop them, a custodian patrol engaged, but the infiltrators sank their vessel during a desperate retreat. This incident reverberated through the custodian leadership, sparking immediate alarms and triggering an unprecedented manhunt. The custodians reacted with ruthless efficiency, exploiting the situation as justification to initiate a series of violent raids on countless homes and institutions. Their aim was to root out any remaining hidden threat. In the wake of the attack, the custodians reinforced their already formidable surveillance infrastructure, intensifying their efforts to track the movements of the new humanities, ensuring that no one could slip through their ever-watchful eyes. The resulting crackdowns were relentless and brutal. The custodians, emboldened by their technology and the success of their operation, continued to fortify their position, increasing control over the population. Despite their increasing dominance, however, the infiltrators had learned valuable lessons and adapted, continuing their struggle against an increasingly oppressive regime. As the manhunt reached new heights, tensions soared, and the world was left on edge. The infiltrators, though pushed to the brink, refused to give up. With every setback, they grew more determined, knowing that the fate of the new humanities lay in their hands. The infiltrators, once hidden in the shadows, now found themselves relentlessly pursued. The consequences of their failure were catastrophic. Out of the 14,000 infiltrators, many were forced to retreat, their mission compromised and lost. Some were captured, enduring horrific tortures as punishment for betraying the custodial regime. The weight of their sacrifices hung heavy on those who survived, serving as a somber reminder of the perilous path they had chosen in pursuit of freedom. Among those who managed to return was Captain Butler. The death of William Morris marked a turning point in the struggle for humanity's freedom, a day etched in the memories of all who fought by his side. His loss became one of the darkest chapters in their battle. Butler, a man worn and scarred by the horrors of war, seemed utterly broken by the death of his comrade. As he approached Helen and her mother, his limp was painful to witness, his physical wounds only a small part of his deeper emotional scars. Each step he took felt like a monumental journey, one that seemed to stretch endlessly. When he finally reached them, the grief that had been building up within him burst forth. The weight of the losses he had endured, the comrades he had failed to protect, all seemed to collapse onto him in that single moment. There was no hiding the raw pain in his eyes as he stood before them, his composure shattered. The sorrow in his heart was palpable, and in that moment it was clear that he had given everything, his body, his soul, and his very spirit for the cause. Butler's silent grief spoke volumes. In that moment, it was as if the burden of leadership, the weight of sacrifice, had taken everything from him. He had led them through countless battles, but now, in the face of such profound loss, even he seemed unable to carry on. The fight for freedom had cost them dearly, and for Butler the cost was no longer just physical. It had consumed him, leaving him a shell of the man he once was. Tears welled up in his eyes as he shared the devastating news, one that no one could have prepared for. William Morris was gone. He had perished in the frigid expanse near the Antarctic zone, a casualty of the custodians' frantic desperation. In a misguided attempt to preserve their control, the custodians had made a fateful decision. They distributed advanced technology to selected leaders among the human population. These leaders, however, were barely capable of understanding the complexity of the tools they had been given. The custodians, though experienced in warfare, had become blinded by their fear, failing to realize the perils of their actions. This error put their entire colony in jeopardy, as they armed a population that was ill-prepared to handle such immense power. The tragedy struck during a return mission. William was aboard the Iron Blue, a ship carrying both ancestors and newly awakened humans, all of whom sought refuge from the oppressive regime of the known lands. As they soared through the Antarctic skies, disaster struck. The ship broke apart in midair, a sudden and inexplicable event. What no one had foreseen was the invisible barrier the custodians had placed near the dome, an emergency defense mechanism designed to block the air route discovered by the ancestors. The measure, rushed and poorly executed, proved to be deadly. The custodians' plan had been born from a desperate need to prevent the escape of the ancestors, but in their haste, they had underestimated the risks involved. The catastrophic failure of the Iron Blue mission exposed the fragility of their control, and the consequences of their fear-driven decisions were now painfully clear. The barrier destroyed the Iron Blue, claiming the lives of William and many others. Butler, who had been traveling aboard a different ship, managed to escape by the skin of his teeth. When he later recounted the events, his words painted a scene of utter chaos and treachery. The custodians, in their attempt to quash the resistance, had unleashed a wave of devastation that quickly spiraled beyond their control. It wasn't just the ancestors and their allies who were caught in the fallout. The technology they had shared triggered conflicts across the known lands, as nations turned these deadly innovations against one another. Advanced weapons, climate manipulation tools, and environmental controls became instruments of utter destruction. Planes, ships, and even entire populations vanished without a trace, reduced to nothingness by forces beyond their understanding. For Helen, the loss of her father was a devastating blow. In that moment, she was consumed by despair. She found herself questioning everything, Was the fight worth it? The cause her father had devoted himself to now seemed a distant, impossible dream, a battle against overwhelming forces that seemed unbeatable. As Helen grappled with her grief, she couldn't help but wonder whether all the suffering and sacrifice had been in vain. Her father's struggle, once filled with hope, now seemed like a futile fight against odds that could never be over. The weight of her emotions was crushing, and the world around her seemed to be falling apart just as her father had feared. The destructive aftermath of the custodian's actions had left her feeling lost and broken. What remained of the resistance now seemed like a shadow of its former self. As the world descended deeper into chaos, would there ever be a way to rebuild, or had everything already been destroyed beyond repair? Helen's heart was heavy with uncertainty, and she wondered if there was any hope left at all. However, over time, the despair gradually shifted into determination. People began to realize that William's sacrifice had not been pointless. His vision for freedom and his belief in humanity's potential became a guiding light for those who remained. But the actions of the custodians, while aimed at preserving control, left the world in chaos. The new technologies they brought with them sparked wars and deepened the rifts between nations. Leaders, now armed with these advanced tools, wielded their power recklessly, pushing the planet to the brink of annihilation through biological warfare and other devastating methods. The custodians themselves grew fearful that humanity might turn the very technologies they had introduced against them. Although this threat seemed distant at first, the more pressing danger was the possibility of another reset, an utter obliteration of humanity's progress, instigated by the custodians' fear of losing control. This dark future loomed large in their minds. Still, the battle for human liberation had not ended. In fact, it was intensifying, spurred on by the sacrifices of those who had fought and fallen before. The hope that William had ignited never truly faded. As the custodians sought to suppress humanity's growth, they only fueled an ever-growing resistance. People banded together, determined to carry on the fight that had started long ago, despite the looming threat of a reset. The belief in the possibility of a free, thriving humanity only grew stronger. The scars left by the custodians' interference were deep, but they couldn't extinguish the flame of hope. With each passing day, the resolve of those who stood for freedom hardened, and the struggle to reclaim the future from the custodians' control intensified. The fight was far from over, and as long as people remembered William's sacrifice, the battle for humanity's future would continue. William Morris's passing, though deeply sorrowful, sparked a renewed determination within the Republic. He had been a beacon of hope, uniting the known territories and the oppressed ones, seeking liberty. His legacy only intensified the resolve of those who remained unwavering in their resistance against the custodians' oppressive rule. Although the plan had faced delays, it was far from forgotten. True progress, it seemed, was a matter of time, especially when the real conflict wasn't solely in the physical realm, but within the minds of the people. The custodians' primary weapon was psychological control, a relentless assault of doubts, fears, and divisions engineered to keep humanity divided. These intrusive voices, these insecurities and constant rivalries, were tools of domination meant to exhaust people, suppress their spiritual growth, and keep them from realizing their full potential. Despite these insidious efforts, humanity stood strong, showcasing a resilience that defied even the most crushing of odds. But the path ahead demanded more than just endurance. It required a radical shift in how people perceived their own strength and unity. The real battle was not in defeating an enemy, but in overcoming the internal struggles that had been so skillfully planted by the custodians. A transformation in thought, belief, and purpose was necessary for the Republic to rise. The journey was far from simple, and the weight of loss still lingered heavily on the hearts of the people. Yet they pressed on, for they understood that the future was not just about survival, but about reclaiming their collective spirit. And with each step, their resolve grew stronger, driven by the memory of those like William Morris, whose legacy reminded them of what was worth fighting for. Humanity must learn to quiet the intrusive thoughts that constantly disrupt its clarity, reconnecting with the inner strength that has allowed it to endure through countless generations of manipulation. The key to this lies in educating future generations about their true potential, protecting children from the distractions and divisions crafted by those in power to turn them into submissive followers. The custodians use tools like media, science, and education to control the narrative, enlisting trusted figures to mock and discredit anyone who dares to challenge their authority. However, the solution does not lie in completely rejecting these systems. Rather, it is about infiltrating them, excelling within them, and working from within to dismantle the corruption. The Republic offers a distinct vision, one that fosters genuine scientific progress alongside spiritual growth. The wisdom of our ancestors, along with the contributions of the ancient giants, once hidden or destroyed by the custodians, remains crucial to this cause. This lost legacy contains the answers to breaking free from the endless cycle of control and conditioning. De la concheld whether unfair, iri sufficient percento, attaction gadil clay, de la neva conmu, dingum la, de cote prigium de niveva tetebit or condre. La nuad gekatadar in the wetters, procured of the bana, in the P, it was hung with a pereja song, was forget barrier trace, kekchun tuk fair Japan dambekadri balvade so day. Chung min sigur swe ke pro, la de kota dadu, den sim den corlo agree, te congium, de lon to me nurger balvade sir hay, la conte wanton yudu. Chingstin tenda sir kegmon with banchet were say tonda, de shen kundre, dressing in druklade, then cut, some could deck tran, here the word dram me. Kung ho vagatum ming worko, like can jiga dung drung boxem, saka kunyer goods, defectum, a race o sensing, chosets terribing lukuk. De pavasieng chic, corkegola trang in le bien no sanon tu do vien su. Kundung de verkurderieren, trang gadan, ning kim mover and nimle chevro kapong her bauyer, shinger shendura ve, vediv tinsayer, hejung gursa tonga veyos toran shil unno hua, mangdo unsija tudu kusa kim kep kuchiduduk tai. Rekudu, kundung positu, kun yoshotak, ang shangur tudu, ven le tsuro sang, la yon dongruk, chunei kintu shendo, kundre, witathakalan sintangur me, kutabada when men kuchame verkora vutrone.